All right, Skygazers, welcome to yet another Up and Away lesson stream brought to you by Project AVIATE. You can't see me. Hold on. Give me a second. There, now you can see me. Hello, aviators. Once again, here I am. So here we are, over here back at... How do you pronounce this place again? Someone covered it. Yeah. The same airport we were at the last lesson. And before we go on, don't forget to touch down on the subscribe and like buttons to show your appreciation for this channel and to get some updates on our lesson streams, chill streams, and whatever videos we have coming out. Okay, cool. So let's just get right into it. What we're doing today is we're going to be covering air traffic control and basic airport procedures, which you probably saw in the title. And but why do we need that? So air traffic control, if you've probably heard of it, we use that to. We have humans in towers controlling airplanes flying around, but there's a certain thing we need to have in air traffic control, and it's called the phonetic alphabet, which we're gonna go over soon. It's like ATC's own language, but why do we need that? So let me show you the slides, if I can find it. Here it is. All right. Alright, so this is the native phonetic alphabet, which I'll have my officer Calvin go over. But really quickly, before he goes over that, you'll notice that all these letters have words next to them. And we need this because ATC, imagine confusing the letters M and N. Like, have you ever talked to someone on the phone and you've been asked to say the letters M or N? Now imagine that nightmare if you were an air traffic controller trying to figure out what letter it was. So I'll have Calvin go on explain what these are. Oh, hold on.
On the stream.
Yeah, sorry. Calvin, go again.
Alright, so basically there's names tied to each of the letters. I will go through each of them. A is Alpha, B is Bravo, C is Charlie, D is Delta, E is Echo, F is Foxtrot, G is Golf, H is Hotel, I is India, J is Juliet, K is Kilo, L is Lima, M is Mike, N is November, O is Oscar, P is Papa, Q is Quebec, R is Romeo, S is Sierra, T is Tango, U is Uniform, V is Victor, W is Whiskey, X is X-Ray, Y is Yankee, and Z is Zulu. So, you just need to memorize all of these and you're good to go. And for the numbers, there are two ones that are mainly different, it's 3 and 9, but I'll go through each of them just in case you don't know the other 8-ish. So 0 is 0, 1 is 1, 2 is 2, and then 3 is pronounced tree. 4 is 4, 5 is 5, 6 is 6, 7 is 7, 8 is 8, and 9 is niner. And then once you memorize all these, you can start listening in, and then you'll be able to hear some stuff.
Yeah, normally we like to emphasize on this channel not to memorize things, but to understand things, but this is just one of those few things that you'll get with practice. You'll get using these phonetics over time. And some of the best aviation memes and jokes come out of using the wrong phonetic for the letters, like confusing Zulu with zebra, or I don't know, what other ones can you think of? I can't think of any other ones on the top of my head, but I know that's something I've confused before.
Wombat?
Wombat for whiskey? Maybe.
Yep.
I could see that happening.
That's happened before.
Alright, well, in any case, as I showed you in the beginning of the stream, we are at, you've got to say the name of the airport.
Kaului.
Airport. And this...
ICAO, just gonna butt in real quick, sorry.
Yeah.
ICAO code PHOG for anyone that wants to follow along at home.
Yeah, so for anyone in X-Plane Mobile, you want to go to PHOG, which, now that you know the phonetic alphabet, Papa Hotel Oscar Golf. You'll eventually be able to memorize that. But since this, in our slide, the chart's a little lopsided, I'm going to go ahead and show you this. Now, you might have noticed I very strategically moved the view in the simulator to match that of the airport diagram. So this, as you probably noticed in the title, is an airport diagram. And put in very simple terms, it's a diagram of the airport. And now you know what an airport diagram is. It shows all the different, let's say you could call it road systems in the airport. Just like how on the street you have many different roads and intersections, and also highways. If you remember from the last stream, we analogized a highway to being a traffic pattern. So think of an airport having its own runways and its own taxiways. So the runways are in dark black, and the taxiways and everything else is in gray, like normal light gray, which you see. And as you know, runways are used for taking off, and taxiways are used for moving on the ground. So that's the basic of that. Now, if you zoom into this airport diagram, which I think you could be able to see it on the stream, I'm gonna go ahead and go close to the airport. You'll notice that on the you'll notice that if you look here, for instance, if you see my mouse, you'll notice that there's a if you look on where that is in the airport diagram, you'll notice that there's like a letter F on it. If you look in the airport diagram in the center of it, it's like a letter F, or as you know by the phonetic, foxtrot. This is how we name taxiways. We name taxiways by their letter associated with them. So instead of the name of a road, it's the name of the taxiway, and it's given by a letter. That's good. So
it's like,
yeah, you would call it
like,
taxiway foxtrot.
yeah, it's basically, you can kind of think of it as like Foxtrot Boulevard and Oscar Street, but they're taxiways, not streets and boulevards.
Yep. And you'll notice if you actually go to this taxiway right here. Oh, by the way, if you want to follow along in X-Plane, you can go ahead and park at ramp signature FB03. And if you don't remember how to do a personal customized startup, please reference one of our older streams. And okay, so here we are. You'll notice that this is the taxiway Foxtrot I was talking about, and as you see here, we have little signs that tell us what taxiway we're on, indicated by a yellow letter, the yellow box around it. At least in the simulator it is. I know in different airports it could look different, but that tells you we're on taxiway Foxtrot. So no, pilots do not have to memorize exactly where they are in the airport. They have these for reference. Now let's go over the next numbers here, actually. You'll notice we have a 02-20. And if you look on the chart, you can see we have runways 02 and 20. If you look at the chart here. I'm going to go ahead and... Oh, you can see that, right? You see what I highlighted in blue up on the top right of the airport? That would be the runway 20, and then down here where it says... We're down here where it says LF55. You notice there's a number 2 there. That's 02. I want to quickly go over these runway naming conventions. These are based on the direction on the compass that these runways are pointing. So if you actually notice, if we... Remember how in a previous lesson we covered how this heading indicator tells us what our heading is? So you see north, and then you'll see 30 degrees east of north, 60 degrees east of north, and then east, etc. That's what the heading means, right? So when you see these runways 02 or 20, that means the direction in which the runways are facing is heading whatever the number is. So you'll notice what I've highlighted down here. It says 025.5. That's the exact heading of the runway. So when you take off, your heading indicator will show you basically that heading. It'll show you a heading of around 025, which we're at right now, actually. So we're right now parallel to the runway, or in the same direction. We're pointing in the same direction as runway 02. So that's where those that's where the runway naming conventions come from. You don't necessarily have to know that when you are talking to air traffic control, but it's a good idea to have so that if you're aligning your heading indicator, like remember we had to calibrate the heading indicator in our previous streams? Yeah, basically like that. And if you notice, if we go around the airport, you'll start seeing this. What is this? Now we have yellow signs. If you look over here, we have Foxtrot again, which you'll see on the airport diagram. We still have Foxtrot. If I can highlight it. There. We still have Foxtrot, but now we have an A, or Alpha. And it has 2 arrows. And what you might notice is that if we look on our airport diagram on the right, you'll see we have Alpha over here, and we have Alpha over here. Oh wow, this is really glitching out on me. You'll notice that we have A, or Alpha, running the taxiway along the length of the runway, and that's what this is showing us. If we turn left or right, we will enter taxiway Alpha. So these, as I said earlier, these are just very simple street signs at an airport to help you figure out what taxiway you should be on and what taxiway you can go to. And this is going to be really helpful because air traffic control will speak to you very fast and tell you what taxiway letter names you're supposed to go to so that you can get to the runway you want to be or the terminal where you want to be. And also you'll notice when you're about to enter a runway, when you're next to the runway, you see the runway right here, you'll notice you have these. Actually, why don't I? You'll have these stripes with the dashes on it, and it shows in big, bold numbers the runway numbers 20 and 02 on either side, just as a reminder which runways are what. And this line right here is called the hold short line, which we'll go over soon. But basically, you don't want to pass this line if you haven't been cleared to cross the runway or enter the runway, because this is for safety. This is so, I don't know, the airplane wings of someone landing or taking off don't hit you, or you don't get hit by any other random forces from when airplanes are taking off and landing on the runway. So it's very critical that you stay at or be behind this line until you are given clearance to cross it. The rest of it is actually stuff you've probably heard before. You might recognize these. This is a terminal. In fact, if you've gone to an airport, which I'm sure some of you watching this probably have, you often go to terminal letter name, or sometimes it's a terminal number. And terminals, you just have the gates here, and you can see it on the airport diagram. It says terminal. So it just says terminal there. And then the last thing I'd like to point out is the infamous control tower. Every controlled airport has a control tower. There are airports that don't have them, but we're not going to go over that right now. This is where the humans giving the verbal directions to all the airplanes, this is where they usually sit if we're talking about the main air traffic control tower. And yeah, and then at the rest of the airport, especially at smaller airports, you'll see these. These are hangars. These are where all the small planes usually park and reside, and it's kind of where we are. We're parked over here right now because I wanted to show you taxiway Foxtrot, but normally you'd see the smaller general aviation airplanes parked here, and then commercial airplanes at the actual gate bridges parked over here. So now you know the basic layout of the airport and how the airport diagram can tell you those things. And just one last thing, I guess, like I said earlier, there's like LEV 14 and LEV 55. If you remember, this is just the altitude of that specific area of the airport. So airports are not completely flat, just like nowhere is in the world. The Earth is round. Earth is not flat. Earth is a globe. So this just tells you that the elevation at runway 02 is 55 feet above sea level. That's the sea. And the elevation at runway 20 is 14 feet above sea level. So that's basically just the things you need to know to get by with this airport diagram. And we'll go ahead and now move on to actual air traffic control commands, which I'll have Steven talk about.
All right. So before we actually talk about the commands and phraseology, we will talk about the types of air traffic control. So you all know that they sit inside that little huge tower, but there's actually multiple positions, and each tower range from 5 controllers to maybe 30 to 50 to maybe 100 people inside. So there are different positions The first one on the list is called ATIS. It is not really a position, but ATIS stands for Automatic Terminal Information Service. Most of the time, they save a space and it's a robot reading information. And what it reads is weather information. And the information includes the date, the time that the information was composed, the wind direction and speed, the visibility around the airport, clouds above the airport, if there's rain, snow, mist, or any of those precipitation. It also tells you the temperature, the dew point, and then the altimeter setting. The temperature, dew point, and altimeter, we will cover that in the future when we talk about weather, so you don't really need to worry about those. And then the most important thing that the ATIS tells you is departure information. So it will tell you which runways are active or any NOTAMs. NOTAM stands for Notices to Airmen, and they are very important. It might tell you that a specific taxiway is closed or if a runway is closed, and you need to know that. So that is what an ATIS does. Most of the time, it is a robot that reads to you. It's like programmed, and the robot reads you the information, and the information is updated once every hour at approximately the top of the hour, maybe around 55. So like 10:55, 11:55, 5 minutes before the top of the hour. The next position we
Do
have
you want me
is
to
the
play
clearance.
what that sounds like?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
You
So
can give an example.
yeah, he's just talking about ATIS. This is very important, as he said. And let me just show you what that might look like if I can make the slides disappear.
And one more thing,
Yeah.
ATIS gives you a letter code before and after the information. It will say, forgot the airport name, but let's say Reed Hillview Information Alpha, and then that's how it starts. At the end, it will say you have information Alpha. This is important because when you call up to request taxi, which I'll talk about soon, you will need to tell them you have information Alpha, or else they will tell you to go back and listen to it. Continue.
Yeah, and that's like a version number. It's like
Yes.
the most. It's tells you if you're on the updated weather information. Okay, don't worry about the frequency stuff. We'll go over that later. But this is basically what you might. Did I get this wrong? Hold on. I think I know why. Give me a sec. Oh no, where is it?
Honolulu
Here we go.
Information Hotel. 2200 Zulu weather. Wind light and variable. Visibility more than 10. Sky clear. Temperature 22. Dew point -6. Altimeter 3011. Arriving runway 20. Departing runway 20. Advise on initial contact. You have hotel.
Yeah, so everything you heard in there, basically, it told you the time of when this weather information was put out. It tells you the wind information, the visibility, cloud situation,
Honolulu Information
and
Hotel.
the
2200
pressure at the
Zulu
airport.
weather. Wind light and variable.
Atmospheric pressure at the airport.
Visibility more than
It tells you
10.
what runways are active,
Sky clear.
and finally, the
Temperature
most important
22.
one, you have
Dew point
information
-6.
hotel in this case.
Altimeter 3011.
That's the weather version number, if you want to think of that. So
Keep
that's what
in
that
mind when you
sounds like.
request Taxi.
Yeah. All right, we're ready to move on.
So, next is clearance delivery. We don't need to worry about clearance if we're not a IFR. IFR is VFR versus IFR. I think we talked about in the previous sessions. VFR is visual flight rules. IFR instrument flight rules. Since we are flying VFR, just remain clear of the clouds. Don't touch the clouds, even though they look fluffy. Don't touch them. If you touch them, you go into IFR. Don't touch them. It is illegal to touch them in real life. So for IFR, you would have to call up clearance, and you have a flight plan. Clearance will clear you and clear that flight plan, and you will need that clearance before you request taxi. That is basically what clearance is. And it's a real person speaking to you. Next one is a ground control. It's basically what it sounds like. It controls all aircrafts on the ground. At bigger airports, there may be up to 5 ground controllers. They control the north side of the airport, south side of the airport, west and east. Ground control just controls all aircrafts on the ground, so you have to be speaking to them while you're taxiing. And the next one we go to is tower control. Tower control controls planes that are on the runways. Even if you're not taking off and you need to cross a runway, most of the time, if ATC is busy, they will make you contact tower to cross a runway just for like 10 seconds. And then you have to go back to the ground controller. But most of the time, they work in the background. They ask each other, like in the tower, they'll be like, ground control will be like, hey, tower, can this aircraft cross this runway right now? And then tower will be like, yes. And then ground control will clear you to cross the runway. But if it's busy, you will have to switch to tower to cross. Tower, you will have to contact tower when you are ready to take off or you're landing. And tower control will be the people giving you the takeoff and landing clearance. So basically, what tower does, it's controlling the runways, specifically only the runways. And then we got departure and approach. They do similar jobs. They separate and space out airplanes, and they sequence airplanes around a specific area that they are working. They give at least 1 to 3 minutes of space between each aircraft, so an aircraft can land and taxi off without another one tailgating them right behind them. And then they handle traffic, and they just basically space each other out. And they also give traffic advisory, so they make sure that you're not too close to another aircraft, and they make sure that you're flying safely. Departure, so specifically departure, you talk to departure once you take off. And once you climb through approximately 1,000 feet, you would contact departure, and they would control you from there, and then up to your cruising altitude. They might give you specific headings to go to, or they might give you specific altitude to go to, just to separate you. Arrivals do the same thing, except you're not climbing, you're descending, and you're descending into an airport. And they just sequence you around, they move you around just to make sure that you are in the right place so that you don't end up in a bad situation. And timing is the key, so arrivals and departure controllers have timing down. Center control, you don't need to worry about this much, but it is basically the last people you talk to before you come back down. So once you go to departure and you go all the way to your cruising altitude and you're en route to your destination, center control is also called en route control, where they just basically watch you fly there, and they might give you heads up information, stuff like that. Believe it or not, center control is one of the hardest control, even though it sounds easy. They do a lot of stuff in the background. They just don't talk to you much. But that's what center control does. So a typical airliner will follow this path. They will listen to the ATIS, get a certain version code. They will call up clearance, receive their flight plan clearance. They will call up ground. They will request a taxi clearance. They will also taxi to that specific airport after they've been cleared to it. Or correction, they will taxi that runway after they've been cleared to it. Right before they enter the runway, they will contact tower. Tower will tell them to enter the runway. They will clear them to enter the runway, and then they will clear them to take off. And then they will go to departure control after they have liftoff. Departure will guide them up, and then they will contact center control, which will watch them all the way till they get to their destination. When they get near the destination, they will go to approach control. They will start coming back down. They'll go back to tower because they need to get a clearance to land. So once they get to tower, get a clearance to land, and then they touch down. After they touch down, they exit the runway. They will contact ground to request a taxi to their parking. And then after that, maybe a bonus one would be contact ramp for specific instructions for taxi to the gate.
Yep. And
one important thing is feel free to go to your local airport and ask for a tower tour. You might be able to Google up a number of, Reed Hillview Tower or some other tower at your airport. Just call them up, maybe schedule a tour, and you can get to see what it looks like inside.
Yeah, thank you. And just for the purposes of this stream, we'll actually only need to worry about ATIS up to tower. Departure, approach, and center is once you get into the air, and we'll go over these in much more detail when we talk about actual flight planning and actually doing a flight. For now, we're just talking about airport operations, and in that case, let's go on to the next slide, where we talk about how do you communicate on the ground. Now that you know all these different people you can contact, the phonetic alphabet, and all the taxiway naming and runway naming, what do we do?
Yep, so now you know who to contact, you need to know how to contact them. So first of all, you tune into to their frequency. You just find them on the taxi chart. You put in your radio, and then the phraseology. You need to get this right. It's something that you need to memorize, but it's not really memorizing. You're just doing it, and then you're gonna get used to it. First of all, you have to say who you are talking to, and then who you are, where you are, and what you want to do. So if you look at example one, Reed Hillview Ground is who you're talking to. So I'm the pilot. I'm calling up Reed Hillview Ground. Who I am is November 3547 Hotel. Where I'm at on taxiway Charlie. What do I want to do? I want to request taxi to runway 31 right. Example number two, San Francisco Tower, Delta 47 holding short to a left, ready for departure. So who you're talking to, who you are, where you are, and what you want to do. To some do's and don'ts, do repeat all instructions and replies from ATC. You will need to exactly mimic ATC sometimes. I'm sorry, but sometimes some controllers are not so funny people, and they make you reply to them, and they make you repeat all of what they say, and they'll
They're
be
bullies.
like, "I'm sorry." They'll be like, "I'm sorry. Repeat repeat entire message." So it's best to get it down the first time. Repeat everything that tower says, or any controller says. And then for yes and no, we don't say yes and no in aviation. We use affirmative or affirm or negative. I know affirmative can be abbreviated to affirm, but negative is just negative. There's no neg. I know that sounds weird, but you just say the full word negative.
Yeah.
And then keep transmission short by thinking before you're talking. That leads us to our don'ts. Do not key your mic and think. I know some student pilots do that, but best way is to think before you speak. And if you forget what you're gonna say, write it down. Just write down your entire phrase. That's what I actually did. Write down your entire phrase of what you want to say, and then key up your mic, which is like pushing down the mic button to speak, and then you say your phrase. And do not ignore ATC.
Yeah. All right, and as you can see, the airport diagram actually features most of this stuff that we talk about. We see the ATIS, we see tower, we see ground control, and clearance delivery, which are the four main ones we actually want you to know for just the purpose of this stream. And now you see these numbers under them. These are, if you ever used a radio, and I don't know, what are some common radio stations you guys listen to? 99.7. That's the only one I know because it's stuck in my head, like the 99.7 now. You know how you have FM and AM radio? This is exactly the same thing. I think these are FM frequencies, and you tune these into the airplane's little radio, and you can contact each of these people. So just as a basic, just to show you, if I can get rid of the slides. Yeah. If we look at if you click on this top giant display here, you'll be able to see it. Yeah. And this should be able to show up in X-Plane Mobile. You can see you have like a big button here and a small button here. You can actually change these to be the frequency. You'll notice the number changes up here. So if we wanted to contact ATIS, then we go 128.6. And then if you press this, you get your ATIS information, which you see up here. Similarly, if you want to contact the rest of these folks, you just put in their frequency, contact them, and say what Steven told you to say. And don't forget, one thing I wanted to clarify really quick, he did talk about call sign and flight number. So you saw N3457H and Delta 47. Let me talk about the first thing really quick. If I can. So when he said N3457H, he's referring to this number. This is the tail number, or on most general aviation airplanes, it's a registration number, basically. Kind of like how your car has some means of identifying itself. Airplanes have their own means of identifying themselves, and it's for this registration number. But what you're probably more used to is when you go travel on a flight with your family, and you go on I don't know, United Airlines or Delta Airlines. They'll always say, welcome aboard United flight number 2 destination. And this was not paid for by United, by the way. But anyway, that number and the airline name is basically what's called a call sign. So it's similar to a registration, except for the bigger planes, they use that. So they'll say United 47 or Delta 47, which you saw on the slide. That's the name, that's how we name aircraft and talk to them. So we know who we're talking to. So yeah, do we want to do like a brief demo before we end the stream? We've come up to 11 a.m. Should we try demoing just a taxi instruction?
Sure.
So let me zoom out on this really quick. Right now I'm parked over here at the GA, General Aviation Transient Parking. So maybe if you were to give me an instruction to runway 02 down here, what would you tell me?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
If you were to give me an instruction to taxi to runway 02, and right now I'm parked at the General Aviation Transient Parking. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you were to give me a taxi instruction to runway 02, what would you tell me? Also, the call sign, is November 172 Sierra Papa. In this case,
All right.
what would you tell me? Let's see. Let's get rid of the slide.
Are you gonna request taxi, or do you just want me to see it?
Oh yeah, hold on. Give me 1 second. I'm just moving this around. Alright, I think this is... We contact ground for this, right? So the first thing we want to do is put in their frequency. It would be like 121 decimal niner. Go in here. So I could probably just say something like this would be, would I say Maui ground? Because they say Maui Tower. Or Kaului
Yes, ground.
Or just ground.
Kahului.
Kaului ground. Alright. Kaului ground, November 172 Sierra Papa, requesting taxi clearance for 02.
November 172 Sierra Papa, Kahului ground, runway 02, taxi via Echo, cross runway 02 at Echo, Alpha Charlie, and verify you have information Bravo.
Okay, this is where my bad memory comes in. Kaului ground, please repeat taxi instructions.
November 172 Sierra Papa, verify you have information Bravo. Runway 02, taxi via taxi via Echo, Alpha Charlie. You're cleared to cross runway 02 at Echo.
Alright. Taxi via Echo, Alpha Charlie, and clear to cross runway 02 at Echo. We have information Bravo, November 172 Sierra Papa.
November 172 Sierra Papa, read back correct.
Alright, so we can kind of just follow those taxi instructions. So basically all that means is taxiway Echo, you'll see the little E where it says HS2 and there's a circle. Basically what that means is we have to taxi all the way along here. We actually have to get to taxiway Echo, because we're right now at where it says GA transient parking. So we have to just, I wonder if I can make this a little louder. Alright, let me align myself with the taxi line. Alright, so now you see we're on taxiway Echo, which you should be able to see. Right now you see we're on taxiway Echo. So we've been cleared to cross runway 02 via taxiway Echo, and so that's what we're doing right now. We're just crossing 02, just like that. And then we have to get onto taxiway Alpha, which would be, if you see here we see taxiway. See, we're on taxiway Echo right now, and we see Alpha to our left. So we want to turn left on Alpha. So oh god.
Oh, and one thing I forgot to say is that you can request a progressive taxi. So if you're a student pilot or if you don't know the airport well, you can ask for a progressive taxi. So they won't dump you all those taxiway names when you request. What they will do is they will actually tell you when to turn. So right before Nikhil turned left on Alpha, they would say November 172, turn left on Alpha, and you would just do what they say. And then once Nikhil gets to Charlie here, they'll be like, November 172, turn left on Charlie, hold short runway 02. So they tell you when you get there, they don't tell you everything beforehand. That's sometimes easier for some pilots if they're at a big airport and they're new to it. It's called progressive taxi instructions.
Or if you're like me and can't memorize to save my life.
That's why you write stuff down.
Yeah, I forgot to get my paper. So, as you can see, I just turned left on Charlie, and whoa. Now, this is the whole short line. I know, probably should not have crossed it. You want to be behind this. This is the whole short line. Don't cross this until you're cleared for takeoff. But now you can see.
Do not touch that line. Just
Yeah,
don't touch it.
just don't touch it. My bad. But anyway,
Yeah, some controllers will yell at you.
yeah.
And their form of yelling is giving a phone number.
Yeah. We have clouds. Okay. But anyway, that's how you basically get around in an airport. We'll talk about actually flying around in a later stream. So we're having ATC split into several streams. And if you have any questions, email us, flyprojectaviate@gmail.com, or you can throw it in the chat, throw it in the comments of this video. If you made it here, don't forget to touch down on the subscribe button and the like buttons as well to support us and get updates for our future streams. And I have the end stream music playing now. Anyone else have anything to say? Should I take that as a no? Okay.
What?
All good. I mean, there's.
Did we have another slide left? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. We kind of reached the end of the stream already, so we'll go over this in more detail once we actually talk about flying as well. So we don't want to pack too much information in one stream.
Very.
All right. Take care, everyone. I know it's a little cloudy, but just go outside. Please go outside, but don't travel. Wear masks. Okay, cool. See you later, everyone. Goodbye.
Have a great day.
Stay
Have a good
safe.
day.